Good news, we're halfway there. 10 more to go. So I'm Joel Benzel. I'm the founder and president of TouchStream Solutions. We're an alum of High Tech Rochester, the 10 program, and we're going to talk a little bit about our history and just very briefly about our product. And one of the reasons why we're here today is we're very excited to announce that last week TouchStream was acquired by one of the largest electronic software medical record companies in the US. And we can't tell you who it is, but we'll tell you a little bit about contrasting what it's like in our world and trying to grow and what it does to have a strategic partner like that. So TouchStream is a tablet-based home care system that helps the elderly and people with intellectual disabilities live independently at home. It helps manage chronic health conditions like diabetes or heart failure or COPD. It can help manage medications. It can also help with other activities of daily living. It verbally prompts people to do things. It can track things. It can talk to wireless medical devices as well. The tablet becomes an appliance. It goes into someone's home. So let's say your father has heart failure and he forgets to check his weight and he's uncertain what to do when he has that water retention issue, which indicates that his heart failure in progress. So the tablet will start to speak to him. It'll continue to speak to him until he steps on his scale. Once he steps on his scale, it'll send the weight automatically to the tablet. The tablet will evaluate it and tell him there's a problem. And it'll tell them what to do. And then it'll send a text message to a family caregiver or a professional caregiver and letting them know that there's a problem as well so that they can follow up with Harold. And the whole goal of the system is try to catch those small problems before they become a crisis. So it is a tool not just for the individual, but it is a tool for the family caregiver as well. And all of it, you use a web portal as either an informal caregiver or as a professional caregiver to create the care plan. So very simple tools, doesn't require any infrastructure, and requires no knowledge of technology on the part of the end user. So we've heard a lot about pivots and things like that. So we originally designed the system when we started HTR back in 2012. We designed the system, we came and said we're going to build a tool for the elderly and their family caregivers. We were modeling it after Medical Alert. We were going to go direct to consumer. Everyone knows Medical Alerts. That push button, help, I've fallen, I can't get up. So we can do all this for the same price point as that, and wouldn't it be great? And what we found was that it was very challenging because we had a problem. We had a user and we had a buyer, and they were two different people. The buyer is the family caregiver. The user was the elderly parent. And then the caregiver was also a user too through the website. And so we found it very, very challenging. And along the way, we started to pilot with some other populations. We started working with the Arkham Monroe and Heritage Christian Services, and they started using the tablet with young adults with intellectual disabilities. So we had a market of 20 million older adults that we were focused on, and here's 3 million younger people who are really trying to live independently. And you look at the dynamics of these two markets, we were forecasting the average lifetime with a client to be about 3 years in our market with the elderly. And we started looking at the intellectually disabled market and saying every client we serve here, we're going to get an average in their 30s likely, and we might keep them for 20, 30 years. Smaller market, longer period of time, larger recurring revenue. So we started to say, hey, this is a good quality market. We think we can solve some problems very uniquely there, and so we did. And so we added that. We didn't abandon the elderly, but we actually are focused now on both markets and building out for both models. So these are examples of our real users using the system, and just to kind of prove and demonstrate that it can work for a variety. So we were founded here in Rochester. We're in Henrietta. We are invested here in Rochester. We have 14 investors. In our seed round, we had 12 investors. 10 of them are from the Rochester area with an average investment size of about $39,000. So you can imagine we had to cobble together a whole round to make it happen. But we're going to talk in a few minutes about some of the things, some of the programs that we participated in that help us reach out and find those investors and find that community. But our focus was, let's do it in Rochester, let's prove it here, let's understand and prove our model, and then we can demonstrate that model elsewhere and start taking it. So we're now in the process of rolling it out in Boston and in New York City and other areas, but 85% of our users today come from the human services organizations listed up here that are using it to help reduce ED visits, to reduce the amount of staff time, to increase client satisfaction. So, but again, we've had to learn along the way and really understand when things weren't going the way we planned. So this is a timeline from our inception back right in the beginning of 2011. So the color-coded lines are kind of the product cycle, right? We built a prototype in 2011. We were developing and iterating. For people that don't do software products, iterating means you build it, you get it to a minimum viable point, you give it to real users, you get feedback, you find out everything you thought worked didn't, and you got to now retool it, and you keep doing that, but you do it in little bits and pieces, and you keep adding more incrementally versus spending 2 years building, giving it to people, and finding out something didn't work. You just wasted a lot of time. So it was kind of an iterative process. We only had 5 users during that whole period, and we waited a year before we put anyone on it, because frankly, we didn't trust it enough to put someone on it with life-threatening types of conditions. And then we began our beta in 2014, and we've been commercializing it now since the beginning of 2015. But let's look at it from what did it take to get there and to do that. So I used to work at Paychex. And the way I founded the company, it started with a lot of things with entrepreneurs tend to start with a personal experience, but then we validate those. So in my situation, we were going to my mother-in-law's house, who was 75 at the time, knocked on the door to enter her house, and she came to the door and we heard a fall. And we got in, we were able to enter the building and got in and found her lying on the floor. I believe that she broke her hip. So we called the ambulance. And the ambulance arrived, they knock on the door. I go to open the door, my mother-in-law, writhing in pain, suddenly becomes lucid and yells, "Stop!" And I'm like, whoa, okay. "Get me my purse," she yells out. Okay. Well, notice the women are laughing. They already know what's happening here. So I'm thinking, she needs her insurance card. That's great, I'll go get it. Give her her purse, she unzips it. The ambulance is still banging at the door to come in. She's gingerly taking her time, opens up her purse, reaches in, pulls out her lipstick, puts it on. "Now you can let them in," she says. I'm sitting here saying, you're lying in a muumuu on the floor and you had to put lipstick on to let the ambulance come in? So it turns out that that fall actually occurred because she is a diabetic and she had low blood sugar. And we had no idea, and it had been going on for weeks. And because of that, we couldn't intervene, right? So a small problem became a crisis because you had no knowledge. And that was, in the back of my mind, being in software at that time for 15 years, I said to myself, wow, there's got to be a better way. So I thought this was pretty funny, actually. And I went to work the next day and said, "You'll never believe what happened to my mother-in-law." And I'm telling the story, and another coworker, a woman in her mid-50s, says, "You'll never believe what I do every day with my mother." She says, "I drive to work and I go 5 miles out of my way just to see if her newspaper is gone. If the newspaper is gone, I keep going. If the newspaper is still there, I go in the house because there's a problem." And I said, this is crazy. I said, there's got to be a better way. And one by one, people started telling me their system, how they did things with their family. And so being in software, I researched it and realized there's 40 million caregivers dealing with this situation. There's 20 million older adults, 75 and older, and 30% of them have 2 or more chronic diseases. You can start to do the numbers and the math, and it looks like a pretty good market on paper. And it is a good market, but how do you tap that market, right? We started going direct to consumer, and we found out we had to go through agencies and get in there. So we wanted to learn more. I was not an experienced entrepreneur. I was an experienced product manager. And when we work in a big company, you do things very different than you do things as an entrepreneur. So we got involved with the Rochester Venture Challenge, which actually was named rather pedestrian at the time. It was called the Rochester Business Plan Contest. And we've heard a lot of people talk about business plans, what's their waste of time, this and that. But what they're very, very good at is they help you get your shit together. They help you, frankly, answer questions. How am I going to make money? Who is my customer? How do I project out the cost structure of this business? So you have to think through those things. It doesn't mean you need to write a 100-page document, but you have to take the time and the effort to say, do I have a viable business here? We didn't win, but we learned a lot along the way, and we got a lot of support from Bill Jones and Bob Tobin and HTR, and that's how we learned about HTR. And we said, oh, this HTR thing, this is a pretty cool thing. We think we want to be part of it. So we moved into HTR, and we wanted to, at that time, we were looking to raise money, and we wanted to raise an angel round. And we didn't know much about that process, so we got some coaching, went through the 10 program, and we were successfully able to raise an angel round, raise $200,000 plus $150,000 in grants, and that's the money that we used to go through that development and iteration cycle. And so what's not showing on here is right around that time of orange to green is when we were running out of money. And we said, you know, we need to raise more money because we need to start to commercialize, and we just spent all this money on development, but now we need salespeople, and we need to service it, and we need to do all these things, and these things all cost money. So we joined the Z80 incubator also. And by the way, I have no shame. Take advantage of all of these programs if you can. We're involved with Venture Creations, HTR, Z80, and Buffalo. There's nothing wrong with participating 10 program in these programs. They're there to be utilized. They're not there that you can only do one. At different stages in your business's life cycle, a different program may become more relevant. We've heard some mature businesses going through the 10 program. Who would have thought when it was first created? So these are things you need to take advantage of. So through Z80, we actually got a commitment for investment, and we got a term sheet. That term sheet is golden because that legitimized us. Now when we went to the investor community, we were able to say, we have terms, here's what we're raising, and we were able to attach it to our story, and it made sense, it was cohesive, and we were successfully able to raise a $600,000 seed round. So now collectively we have $1 million over time that we've put into this business. And we started to grow. And we started with 10 users, and then we had 50 users. And then we had 100 users, and it honestly took about 6 months to get 100 users. And we started to realize, boy, this is kind of slow. This is expensive. The cycle time to acquire these customers is long, and it's difficult for us to do on our own with our own sales force. So we said we really need a strategic partner. We need access to a market that we can't really reach on our own. Needless to say, today we do have a few hundred users on the system, but we needed thousands, tens of thousands. So we went out to San Francisco and participated in Aging 2.0, which was a technology conference for technologies like us to demonstrate and network, and we participated in multiple competitions. We won Best Pitch. And from there, we had multiple people approach us, companies, and we started talking. And one looked very viable. And it was a software company that made medical record software. And they had a unique problem because they had everything that happened to the patient while they were in a facility, and then when the patient is discharged from this facility, they had no way to provide oversight. They have 1 million discharges a year going through their system, and they have nothing to offer them. So we looked pretty darn good to them. So we started to negotiate, things looked good, they gave us an offer, the offer was reasonable. So what do you do when you get an offer like that? You go to your investors and you sit down. So when you have 14 investors like we did, you have one or two that is your litmus test. And you go to them and you know they're the ones that if they think this is a good deal, then the other ones are going to think it's a good deal too. So we sat down with one of our more experienced investors, and I was sweating, and I thought for sure he's going to say, too early, it's only been 18 months, don't do it. And I sat down and I showed him the deal. And he said, I'm going to tell you 2 stories. The first one is he said, I've been invested in 2 companies that had a chance to exit, and they didn't take it, and they both failed. The next one is I'm invested in 12 companies, and you're the first one to offer to give me my money back. He said, take it. Who's going to argue? So we did. And we were acquired. It was announced just last week, and TouchStream is now officially part of a larger organization, and we're really, really excited. The company's committed to Rochester. We're going to triple the size of our number of employees. It was actually a good deal for everybody. We returned capital to our investors in less than 2 years. Our employees all got raises and real benefits and, frankly, job stability. And our customers win because now instead of having 2 developers, we're going to have 8 developers, and we're going to be able to respond to their needs and build a better product. So we're really excited, and again, it's all happened here in Rochester, and it's all these same programs that you've heard of. You've got to take advantage of them. They're extremely exciting. And the sort of closing slide, and it's kind of a silly slide to close on, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs in this audience. And I wanted to point out how do you raise money, right? Because I talked about raising money. So you can raise money. These are all the funds that are investing right now in early stage companies. We talked to all of them. There's 9 here. 7 said no. 1 said yes, and 1 said maybe. And that's where our money came from. But the point is, but what was really fascinating to me was nobody said no, get out of here. Even the ones that said, no, but let's sit down, let's look at your business, let's see what it would take. What would it take to get to a yes? Or how can you approach this that would make it more attractive to us? So reason why I bring this up is because this is organized funds. Our angel investors were individuals, right? So we had 1 fund and 13 individuals in our company. So there's multiple ways to raise money, but the point is that these organizations they intend to invest in startups. They want to talk to you, and they want to help you, even if they don't want to give you their money. So I encourage you to get out there, talk to everybody. The more you talk to, you're going to talk to 100 just to get 3 or 4 to talk to you, and that's what you have to do. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. I know we're running out of time, and I just wanted to thank everyone at HTR, 10, Gene Case, Jim Sinal, Mike Riedlinger for everything, and everyone for sticking around. I know it's late.